This is Paul with LSP Data. This video, I just wanted to share a project that I'm currently working on. As if you're a current customer, obviously you'll have access to some of this county data, right? And we try to add some indicators that may give you some motivation factors or distress properties. But enough with that. What I wanted to sort of focus on is this. I always talk about the concept of niche data, but the point of data is to be able to interpret it, right, and be able to tell the story. So that's kind of what we're doing now. My current project is around, applying AI to get more context into the potential motivation that a seller may have, right? So I always talk about, pre-foreclosures because that's what most of you are interested in, right? And pre-foreclosure means a lot of things, obviously. So if you're going to any specific county, clerk document, right? For example, you can see what codes, what this all means, right? To make the sort of this video a little bit quicker, obviously every county has their own instrument types, right? In this case, you have things like that, things I always, sort of touch on: risk pendants, right? Modification mortgage, notice, potential notice of foreclosure as well, right? Trustee sale as well. There is a lot of wealth in these document types. And again, that extends to a lot of counties, right? Nationwide. Ultimately, it's the same thing, right? I'm hiding the granting grantors, right? Because many of you, again, you end up going through this sort of pages, pulling this manually, entering the liens, list pendants, etc., right? But anyways, since we have a complete set of data, right, like things like tax delinquencies, those, similar document types, pre-foreclosures, all this good stuff, right? I figure, well, can we contextualize that into meaningful information, right? Meaning that if there's multiple indicators, let's say a particular parcel has, lien, probates, etc., right? And they also have, say, things like code violations, and they also have things like, HOA pre-foreclosures, maybe debt claims, maybe evictions, right? Can we contextualize this into simple terms? And the answer is somewhat, right? So in this case, what I'm doing is wrote a script that uses a local version of DeepSeek, which is basically a local AI model that I'm running. And the intent is for this to tell us, based on that data, right, that it will give us call it motivation. I don't want to call it motivation score. I just want to call it, give us a reason, right? So in these examples, I'm going to hide the property, right? But in these examples, as you can see, this particular parcel in this property has a lien affidavit. It has a code violation as well. I don't know if it has other types of... But anyways, the point is that the model is going to go through each one of those properties, right? And if it has multiple, what we call indicators, right, it's going to contextualize that. So, for example, this one says the property shows signs of financial distress with tax delinquencies, right, which is true. And then they have some street violations, right? Some of them, this one has for mode civil and justice court. This one has building violations, right? So I guess the point of here is that I would love to be able to provide additional context in our platform. So that way, instead of you going through here, entering multiple, like list stacking, which is really good because a lot of that helps you, a lot of you we just want to give you options, right? But what I want to do is basically, if I can have a summary statement on what is the situation, right? Why would this be a motivated seller, or why would this property be considered distress, right? So that would be really, really cool, I think. But regardless, right, the point of making this video is also to provide you some value as well. So I wanted to show you that if you're doing a lot of this manually, right? Obviously, like I said, there's different document types, right? My suggestion would be that to figure out what this means in the context of your county, right? I've kind of touched on different definitions in the past, right? So this one's maybe some good ones to start off with. And if you're going through this manually, maybe you're pulling this list, manually reading them, etc., right? Well, you could probably grab them, maybe in a CSV or like in a spreadsheet, I should say. And you can come up with a prompt that you can add to, I don't know, Google Gemini, ChatGPT, etc., right? And it's going to be a prompt that looks like this. So in this case, for me, I'm saying that you're an experienced U.S. real estate investor who understands county clerk instrument records and foreclosure timelines. So one of the things that I did, because a lot of the models need context, right? Yes, these models are huge and they're really good, but always, especially if you're dealing with specific states, right? So if you're in Georgia or if you're in Florida, right? Even though somewhat, again, the instrument types are the same, or they may sound the same, or sometimes they're a bit abbreviated, right? So it may not say deed, it may say DT, right? Or instead of list pendants, it may say LP. So again, step one is understand your doc types, right? And that way you can provide context to your model. So I'm going to open it in a more readable format here. So in this instance, I'm saying you're an experienced U.S. Real estate investors who understands, county clerk instrument and foreclosure timelines, providing you with some of that context, right? And why is this important? Because when I was running it the initial times, right, it would just look things at, notice, modification, right? And the model gets confused because it just tries to fill in the blank, right? When this large language models don't have an answer, they're just gonna output anything, right? Because they're never gonna tell you that they don't know or they don't have an answer. But if you wanted to do that, you can also add it as part of your prompt, right? So in this case, for me, I'm also, making sure that we're outputting this, that is taking into consideration those indicators that I mentioned earlier, right? But for you specifically, again, this is going to be very helpful, and this is the context that you're going to provide it, right? So that way, if you do this manually, right, there may be a lot of document types that you're not familiar with, and I kind of touched on this in other videos. If you're using commercial products, you're probably going to get 3 to 5 foreclosure related documents, instrument types, right? If you're leveraging our service, you get them all. It just depends, if you know what they all mean, right? I personally don't know what all of them mean, but I have a pretty good indication of the ones that may lead to a pre-foreclosure, and that's why for a lot of them, we make it easier on you to filter out the ones that are more relevant, right? So in general, I guess just to take a step back, you can create a prompt for, again, your favorite model, and if you have the ability to export a list of properties that may have specific county instrument types, right? The main important thing is to provide it context. And if you have other data sets that you have, captured over time, a classic example is that a lot of you may have some list that you pulled, many months ago. And a lot of times, the key is to follow up and mark it again to them, right? But the main thing here, the value add here is sort of the prompt, right? You're telling it, you're an experienced. You can even specify your state, right? Or you can say, hey, you're acting as a wholesaler or I don't know, real estate agent, right? And again, the main thing here is to get an output that says, hey, the property shows signs of ongoing related issues, for example, because I have additional data like property, like violation, right? I had this model running here, just to give you an idea. Initially, it was hallucinating quite a bit, so I had to readjust the prompt, right? So it's kind of nice because now, now it tells us no financial or legal reasons detected, the quit claim deed, there's a property transfer. Let's keep going up. Water quality violation, deed of trust, regular stuff, right? So the main thing here is obviously if there's like a list pendants or something else, right? Like for example, this one, the presence of disclaimer, potential legal related to the property, etc., right? Tax delinquency. This one has a lien affidavit and violations, right? So anyways, I thought it was pretty cool. And again, for me, we're just testing to make sure, if this is something that is worth providing more context into our data, obviously we'll provide that, and just to make it easy for you to identify true distressed properties, because again, a lot of you may list stack and that's how you find things, but sometimes you may list stack and then you exclude other types of motivations. So I think it's nice to have a full summary of, what is the picture on that property, right? How does it look like? And in the future, I want to add, you get, again, even if you already have the data, even if you're not our customer, you can, get a little bit creative. And if you're pulling, let's say, a tax delinquent list, you're pulling a water shut off, etc. And then you have information such as, the equity, or if it's an absentee own, or whatever the issue may be, right? You can always specify that as part of your prompt. And basically the point of leveraging AI correctly and the point of understanding prompt engineering as well is that it can give you some insights that you may have missed in your existing data sets, but also at the same time is providing that extra context to make sure that you are getting the right information. And so I think a lot of us have gotten very trusting with whatever ChatGPT or the other language models tells us, right? And it's hard to sort of fact check them, right? So again, even when you're prompting, just make sure you add a caveat of, hey, if you don't understand, please ask me additional questions, or keep asking me questions until you're 95% confident, at least so you can get an idea of how the model is thinking. So for me as well, part of the adding this type of output here is I want to see how the model is reasoning, right? And I've also added sort of a bit technical, but I added a logging to make sure I see the raw responses, right? So I can tell how DeepSeek model is thinking, right? So anyways, just wanted to kind of show you that, what we're working on behind the scenes. Again, if this works well, this is something that we'll probably implement into the platform. So that way you get additional key signals into properties that are truly distressed, right? And as you know, we like to get different data types, right? So the point of data, again, is to be able to tell the story and see, based on data, obviously, right? In the way you interpret it is the way that you're going to end up deals, and that's going to be your competitive advantage. And again, I'll leave it at that. I'll include the prompt in the description and or in our Skool community. But thank you again for watching.